2026 will mark the 30th anniversary of the Pokemon franchise. 30 years ago, next year, the first two games in the franchise were released in Japan, Pokemon Red and Pokemon Green. And if you're a long-time Pokemon fan like I am, this anniversary will be the most significant one because most of the fans who were there from the beginning, who are around my age, are in their 30s now. And for many of them, I imagine they've got their own families now, and perhaps they've introduced their children to the Pokemon games, starting from Generation 1, maybe going all the way up until Generation 9, and with maybe Generation 10 coming out sometime next year. So I wondered, for a while now, is there anything that Game Freak could do to celebrate 30 years of Pokemon next year? Or is it going to be business as usual with this company? By business as usual, I mean it'll be new games, new Pokemon, new characters, new story, new mechanics, and so on. Business as usual. And after coming across one particular video on YouTube, I'll put the link to the video in the description, as well as the website that the YouTuber was referring to. I realized that it will be business as usual as far as Gen 10 is concerned. So my idea for how Game Freak could celebrate 30 years of Pokemon, I figured, you know what? Maybe the people who could do a better job of celebrating 30 years of Pokemon are the Pokemon fans. In particular, those who are in the ROM hack or Fangame section of the Pokemon fandom. And so I wanted to share this idea with you today, and you can let me know what you make of this idea. So this idea involves an anniversary bundle of games. These would be 4 games, and the idea being that these games are set in the first 4 regions of the Pokemon franchise, at least the mainline games, because these first 4 regions are set in Japan, which is where the franchise began. So you'd have one game set in Kanto, one game set in Johto, one game set in Hoenn, and then the 4th game is set in Sinnoh. And the theme that ties these 4 games together is what has changed in these regions 30 years later. So now you've got room to tell a new story in each of these regions. New characters have come up. When it comes to older characters, which older characters could you bring back? Which older characters might not be around anymore because this is 30 years later now. So it shouldn't be a surprise that there might be some characters who are familiar who might not be around anymore. So you could tell that story. Are there any new Pokemon that have been discovered? Any regional forms? Any new areas in these regions that have been established as well? The towns, maybe they've become cities now. If you're going to look at a region like Johto, which for most people, when you think of Johto, you think of tradition, you think of lore and legends and all that. You could tell a story where it's tradition versus modernization. What does Johto look like 30 years later? Has it held on to its traditions, or has it succumbed to, moving forward with the times? You could tell a story with that. And so I just thought it would be an interesting idea. It could be a collection of ROM hacks. It could be maybe a collection of fan games. And what's interesting about this is it doesn't have to be all the work of one creator or developer or team. You could have 4 teams working on each of these games so that the work is spread out and no one is forced to just work on everything. No, spread out the work. And it could be a big community effort where people can get involved, whether you're someone who's good at writing or you're a composer, or maybe art is your strength, you can help with that. Or as someone who just works on documentation, like what I do, I write walkthroughs. I've been writing walkthroughs for ROM hacks since 2019. So maybe at some point I can help with walkthroughs for each of these games. So it could really be a community effort, because at the end of the day, as much as people might be looking forward to Gen 10, we don't know what those games will look like, and we also don't know how Game Freak might, celebrate this significant anniversary. But you know what? Maybe it's time for the fans to take charge and actually get involved and do something to genuinely celebrate 30 years of Pokemon. And so the reason why I'm sharing this idea now in 2025 is so that if there are people out there who are interested in the idea and taking it up, you'll at least have time to work on this idea. And then hopefully at some point next year, those games can be released as a bundle, just in time for, for the anniversary. So you can let me know in the comments what you think of the idea. You can take this video, or you can just take the audio and you can share the idea with others, because that's the point. It's an idea worth sharing, and people can discuss, and you can put your ideas forward as well. And as soon as you can, whenever you can just get started on it, and we see what we come up with, because 30 years of Pokemon is only going to come once. 40th anniversary will not be as significant. The 50th anniversary, same thing. It's not going to mean as much, because fans are going to get older and older, and maybe at some point you might not be playing Pokemon anymore. So, you know what? This is the time to actually do something significant. So, this is the idea that I just wanted to share. Anyway, take care. Have a good day.